There is a sentence almost every human being has heard at some point in their life. Listen to your parents. It's said like law, like gravity, like something unquestionable. And for a long time, especially when you're small and dependent, it makes sense. They know more. They've lived longer. They've survived things you haven't. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No one says out loud. There comes a moment in life when listening to your parents too closely can quietly begin to cost you your own identity. This is not about disrespect. This is not about rebellion for the sake of ego. This is about psychological growth. Because at some point, every child, whether they are 12, 22, or 42, must decide where their parents' voice ends and their own voice begins. When you are young, your parents are your survival system. They teach you language, rules, safety. Their approval feels like oxygen. Your nervous system is wired to seek it. Neuroscience shows that children are biologically dependent on caregiver validation. Approval equals safety. Disapproval equals threat. So you listen, you conform, you absorb. But here's what most parents don't fully realize. Children don't just listen to instructions. They internalize belief systems. They absorb fears. They absorb anxieties. They absorb unfinished dreams. And not all of those beliefs belong to you. Some parents tell their children to play it safe, not because safety is universally wise, but because risk once hurt them. Some parents discourage creative careers, not because creativity is foolish, but because they were never given permission to pursue theirs. Some parents insist on certain life timelines, not because timelines are sacred, but because they feel validated by tradition. When you listen without questioning, you inherit not only wisdom, but limitation. Psychologically, adolescence and early adulthood are about individuation. That's the process of separating your identity from your caregivers. It's not about abandoning them. It's about differentiating from them. If you never differentiate, you become an extension instead of an individual. And this is where many children, even adult children, get stuck. You might be 30 years old and still feel anxiety before telling your parents a decision you've already made. You might hesitate to pursue something because you can already hear their disapproval in your mind. You might change parts of yourself to maintain peace. That voice inside you that says, "They won't like this," can be louder than your own desires. But here's something important to understand. Parents are human. They are not objective truth tellers. They are shaped by their error, their trauma, their culture, their fears. Their advice is filtered through their lived experience. And sometimes that experience is outdated. Your parents grew up in a different economy, a different social climate, a different technological world. What worked for them may not work for you. What scared them may not be your reality. What defined success for them may not fulfill you. Listening blindly can anchor you to a past that no longer exists. There's also the emotional dynamic of approval. Many children spend years unconsciously chasing parental validation. Good grades, safe careers, respectable choices, marriages that make sense, stability over passion, because being the good child feels secure. But here's the cost. When you build a life around someone else's comfort, you often wake up one day in a life that doesn't feel like yours. And that resentment doesn't explode immediately. It simmers. It shows up as dissatisfaction, as unexplained frustration, as burnout, as quiet anger you don't fully understand. Not listening to your parents doesn't mean ignoring everything they say. It means filtering. It means asking, is this advice rooted in love or fear? Is this guidance aligned with who I am or who they hoped I would be? Many parents project unintentionally. They want their child to avoid pain. But growth often requires discomfort. They want certainty, but innovation requires risk. They want security. But fulfillment sometimes requires uncertainty. There is a deep psychological shift that happens when you stop living to make your parents comfortable and start living to make yourself honest. It feels terrifying at first, because for years your nervous system equated disagreement with danger. You were wired to keep harmony. You were wired to seek approval. So choosing your own path can feel like betrayal. But it's not betrayal, it's maturity. And here's something powerful. Your parents once did the same thing. They may not frame it that way, but at some point, they made choices their parents didn't fully understand. Every generation rebels in subtle ways. You are not breaking the system, you are continuing evolution. There's also the reality that some parents operate from unresolved trauma. If your parent grew up with scarcity, they may push financial stability above all else. If they experienced betrayal, they may discourage vulnerability. If they face discrimination, they may push conformity for safety. Their advice may be protective, but protection can become restriction if unexamined. Children who never question parental authority often struggle later with autonomy. They struggle to trust their own judgment. They second-guess decisions. They seek external validation because they were never encouraged to build internal authority. Listening less to your parents can actually strengthen your relationship with them, if done with maturity. When you make independent decisions calmly and confidently, you shift the dynamic. You stop being managed. You start being respected. It may create friction at first. Discomfort is inevitable. But growth always disrupts familiarity. And this applies at any age. You can be 18 and need to question. You can be 40 and still need to question. Emotional dependence doesn't disappear automatically with age. Many adults still feel like children in front of their parents. That's not weakness, it's conditioning. Breaking that conditioning requires conscious effort. It requires sitting with the discomfort of disapproval. It requires accepting that your parents may never fully understand your choices. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes they won't approve, and you have to live anyway. This doesn't mean rejecting their wisdom. It means discerning it. There is gold in parental advice. There is lived experience worth honoring. But there is also fear disguised as wisdom. If you feel a constant internal tug of war between what you want and what your parents expect, that tension is not accidental. It's individuation trying to happen. You are not ungrateful for wanting something different. You are not selfish for choosing your path. You are not disrespectful for disagreeing. You are becoming. The child who listens without question is surviving. The adult who listens selectively is living. At some point, you must choose between being the child who keeps peace and the adult who builds truth. And here's the emotional climax. Imagine yourself years from now. You wake up in a life built entirely on what others expected. The career is stable. The image is respectable. The choices are safe. But inside, there's a quiet voice that says, "This was never mine." That voice is expensive. It costs time you can't recover. Or imagine the alternative. You chose differently. It was messy. It caused arguments. It required courage. It required explaining yourself repeatedly. But when you look around your life, it feels aligned. It feels earned. It feels honest. Which regret feels heavier? Disappointing your parents for a while? Or disappointing yourself for a lifetime? The goal is not rebellion. It is responsibility. Responsibility for your own direction, your own fulfillment, your own mistakes. Because one day your parents will no longer be here to approve or disapprove, and the only voice left will be yours. Make sure it's strong. If this resonates with you, reflect honestly. Where are you still shrinking to maintain approval? What decision are you postponing because you fear their reaction? And remember, growing up is not about listening less out of anger. It's about listening to yourself more out of courage.